Every year we hear stories of dogs being poisoned at the park or even in their own backyard. Perhaps your dog is acting weird and you've heard these horror stories. So how do you know if your dog has actually been poisoned? What are the signs of poisoning in dogs? Well, of course it can be really difficult to give an exact answer, but many symptoms of poisoning are actually really similar. So I'm here to help you recognize these signs and get some help ASAP. Hi, I'm Dr. Leigh from yourvetonline.com, providing thousands of animal owners just like you on-demand care when you need it most. There are so many potential poisons that can affect our pets, those in the garden, in our homes. Even certain foods and medications result in toxicity for some animals. If you haven't already done so, make sure you check out my video on common poisons to learn what to do and what to watch out for. And I'll pop the link below. Obviously, not all poisons and toxins act the same way, so symptoms will differ. However, there are some general themes that can guide us to what the causative problem may actually be. Now, the most common symptom for many poisons is actually gastrointestinal signs such as drooling, regurgitation, vomiting and diarrhea. Yes, of course these signs can be caused by a number of things. So the next question is, when do we actually need to become concerned that this is more than just a simple stomach upset? So when do we need to take action? Well, if your dog is looking bright and alert, has a couple of vomits or bouts of diarrhea, and is still acting pretty normal, is eating, pretty happy, then it's highly unlikely that they've suffered from poisoning, unless you've just witnessed them eat something they shouldn't have, and it's a pretty immediate response. However, if they are dull, they're depressed, and if you see things in their vomit and diarrhea such as blood, seeds, or a really weird colour change, then it's definitely worthwhile seeking veterinary advice, as poisoning could be a possible cause. The next really common group of signs that we see with poisoning are neurological signs. Now, this includes signs such as wobbliness, twitching, tremors, convulsions and seizures. And if you notice any of these signs, even if really mild, I recommend that you contact a vet ASAP. While not all of these signs mean it must be poisoning, you really don't want these symptoms to progress. Blood problems are our next symptom that we commonly see with poisons. In particular, our rat bait poisoning. And that's one of the most common poisonings that we as vets see. These symptoms may not be apparent for a couple of days after ingestion of the poison. So if you do see these signs, you must seek veterinary attention immediately, because it doesn't take long for your dog or cat to become very sick. There are some subtle signs that you might just trigger you to be a bit worried. And these include lethargy, a soft cough, maybe they're breathing quicker than normal. You might actually notice some red spots on their belly and between their legs, or they might have a bleeding nose, bleeding gums, or blood in their feces or vomit. Some dogs actually have very pale gums, and that can indicate that they are experiencing blood loss somewhere. And also black tarry feces can indicate the same thing. Like many things, it's important to know what is normal in your pet so that you can actually recognize when something is abnormal. So if you haven't already checked out our clinical exam pointers video, I've added the link below. Now, the heart and lungs is another area that is often affected by poisons, and many poisons actually elevate the heart rate so that it's beating that much faster than normal, putting extra strains on this muscle. Sometimes this increase in speed, combined with electrolyte imbalances in the blood, lead to the heart beating so erratically, and we call this an arrhythmia. Now, arrhythmias can be fatal in themselves, or they can result in reduced blood flow that can have knock-on effects to other organs such as the kidneys. So you can check your dog's heart rate yourselves. Now, Put your hand on the left-hand side of their chest, just by their elbow, and you should be able to feel the heartbeat there. You want to count the number of beats in 15 seconds and multiply that number by 4. Best to do this while your dog is resting, so the rate isn't elevated by exercise or movement. Remember that larger dogs have a lower heart rate, while smaller dogs have a faster heart rate. So like everything, and what we keep saying, it's best to know what is normal for your dog so that you can take action when it's abnormal. Just as a guide, most larger breed dogs have a heart rate between 60 to 100 beats, while smaller dogs have a heart rate between 100 to 140 beats. Now, if your dog is having a heart rate greater than 140 at rest, when they are relaxed, you need to seek veterinary advice for your dog. While you're taking its heart rate, you might be able to notice if your dog has a regular heart rhythm. If it feels irregular and it's jumping all over the place and your dog is lethargic, probably got an arrhythmia, and it's best to seek veterinary advice for this immediately. All right, if the lungs are affected, then usually you'll notice a fast breathing rate. Again, it's always good to know what is normal. So count the number of breaths in 15 seconds and multiply this by 4. Dogs that are nice and relaxed and not panting normally have a breathing rate between 10 and 35 times per minute. Sometimes we'll also notice that there's a lot of effort to breathe. Now, if your dog is struggling to breathe, you may see a lot of abdominal movement, so they're moving their belly in and out a lot. They might push their elbows away from their bodies, and they stretch their neck out. They often breathe through their mouth, and they do all these things to aid the movement of air into their lungs. Again, if you see this, you need to get your dog to the vet ASAP. The kidneys and liver play a vital role in how a body removes toxins from the blood. There are so many poisons that are actually excreted via these organs, and in the process of doing that, they cause irreparable damage to them, resulting in organ failure and ultimately death. Damage to the kidneys can occur really quickly, and initially the symptoms will seem very non-specific. You might notice that your pet is lethargic, perhaps they go off their food, they might have the odd vomit. Over the course of the next 24 hours, this often progresses to an increase in drinking, but you don't see an increase in urination. They probably have more vomiting, and then as it worsens, your pet may just collapse. Sometimes the urine will also change colour. Liver damage has similar symptoms, although you may also see the gums and the whites of the eye turn a yellowish colour. Of course, there are so many signs that could indicate that your dog has been poisoned. Things like hyperactivity, stargazing, vocalization, fever, just a few, to name a few. If you are worried that your pet has been poisoned, it is far better to get in touch with your vet or our online vets at yourvetonline.com. Determine if you need to get them to a clinic. Timing is absolutely critical in the treatment of poisoning, and often decontamination by inducing vomiting is all that is needed to save your dog from a life-threatening outcome. Like all these things, prevention is far better than cure, and it's wise to become familiar with the common poisons that can affect your dog and ensure that they have absolutely no access to them. Invest in lockable cupboards or sheds, so that it's absolutely impossible for your dog to open them and access these poisons. As always, if you have any questions or stories you'd like to share, pop them down below in the comments section. I'd love to hear all about them. For those of you who's first time visiting, I'd love for you to consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos. Remember to also check out the playlists for our previous videos that we've made for you. Until next time, I'm Dr. Leigh from yourvetonline.com, on-demand care for all your pets and animals.